Hey, I'm Kev Care, and welcome to a very different Power Oversteer. As unfortunately at the weekend we had the sad news of the passing of Murray Walker at the age of 97. So instead of what I had planned, I'm going to talk about Murray Walker because I know some of you were perhaps a bit too young to enjoy his commentary live. He retired full time 20 years ago now. And just talk about my walk in general and what he was, what he meant to fans, like me, who he infected and shared his passion and enthusiasm for motorsports with for over 70 years of his life. So, if you don't know who Mike Walker was, he was born on the 10th of October in 1923. He was the son of Graham Walker, who was a prolific motorcycle rider pre-war. He had won the 500cc and 250cc European Championships in the 20s and 30s, and had won the lightweight TT class at the Isle of Man in 1931. And then the Second World War happened. So Murray got conscripted into the army, fought on the front lines in Europe in 1945. Was actually met his father on the front lines as well. He was covering the news, covering the war for the news. And Murray left the army as a captain. Then post-war, he actually tried to follow into his father's footsteps. Took up motorcycle racing at club level, wasn't actually that good in the end, and then he went into advertising. He actually worked on accounts for the likes of Dunlop and then for Esso as well. He was like an accounts director, and he did actually come up with a couple slogans as well, such as Trill makes budgies bounce with health, which was advertising slogan for birdseed in the 60s, and Opal fruits, you're probably all too young for that, made to make your mouth water. And he had actually had this advertising career alongside his commentating career until 1982, when he retired from advertising and became a full-time commentator at the age of almost 60 in the end. But of course he's a bit more famous for his commentary, which began in 1948 at the Chelsea Walsh Hill Climb. Then the following year, he commentated his first Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix in 1949, and afterwards he actually joined his father, as his father was the chief motorcycle commentator. He joined him in the commentary box until 1962, when his father passed away, and then took over as the BBC's chief motorcycling commentator. And during this time as well, he commentated on other things such as motocross, such as rallycross, as well. There's a great video on YouTube of him commentating on John Button, Jenson Button's father, from the British Championship. And of course, he commentated on the likes of F1 as well during the 70s, before going full time in 1978 when the BBC started to cover F1 full time. And he did that all by himself in 78 and 79, being the commentator, the presenter, the interviewer, until Monaco 1980, when 1976 F1 World Champion James Hunt joined him in the commentary box. And Murray's a great story from their first time in the commentary box, because they had like deck chairs near the pit exit at Monte Carlo, like no actual box. And James Hunt had torn muscles in his leg, like trying to do a snowboarding trick. And so James Hunt was in his deck chair with like his plastered leg on Murray's lap, with like a bottle of rosé in one hand as well. And Murray Walker was like commentating, standing up as he always wanted to do. He said doing it this way, is not as free, like you can express yourself better standing up as well. He had this great pants on fire commentary style, as the late Clive James said of his commentary. And yeah, he was like doing this, and James Hunt was laid back having a bottle of rosé. Even when he ran out, BBC person gave him another bottle of rosé to drink during the Grand Prix, and so that was a bit of a contentious partnership, James Hunt and Murray Walker, because James Hunt was laid back, Murray Walker was meticulous. He had notes for like every driver in the field, had a story about everyone on the F1 grid, and James Hunt just sauntered in like 5 minutes before a race and would be like his co-commentator. And that's back when they shared microphones as well. Like, they didn't have two microphones. I'm guessing did not talk over each other, but they grew into a fantastic partnership though. I wasn't old enough to, of course, listen to it, but if you asked anybody about that partnership, they would say it was, magnificent. Hunt and Walker always entertaining. Unfortunately, until James Hunt passed away a couple of days after the 1993 Canadian Grand Prix. And then after that, alongside Murray Walker was Jonathan Palmer, a F1 driver from the 80s, who now runs Motorsport Vision, which runs quite a few circuits here in the UK. And Jonathan Palmer was very different. He was very technical. He was almost in the mould of mode, like very meticulous as well. Maybe a bit duller than James Hunt. If people, again, I was too young to remember this, but yeah, if you ask people, it was not as entertaining as James Hunt in the commentary parts, but he was fantastic, articulate co-commentator. Looking back at races now. But then, when the BBC lost the rights in 1996, of course, he formed a partnership with Martin Brundle when they went over to ITV, beginning in 1997. And for 5 years, they were a great duo. Unfortunately, Murray was a bit on the decline, like he was in his 70s by now. Well, Martin Brundle, fresh out the cockpit, sharp as a tack, alongside him. And I'll link a video down below from 1997 European Grand Prix qualifying, showing how great a partnership they were. And that's when, three drivers had the same time at the top. And there's maybe a guest appearance from a young Ted Kravitz as well in that video. But yeah, they were together for 5 years until Murray Walker decided to retire after the 2001 season. He actually had this thought in 2000 after the German Grand Prix, because in that Grand Prix at the start, Michael Schumacher and Riccardo Fisichella crashed at the first corner. And Murray was obsessed that Michael Schumacher was actually his teammate, Rubens Barrichello, who started lower down the field. And unfortunately, after the race, the Daily Mail, it's a tabloid scum newspaper over in the UK, they wrote a very horrible piece about Murray Walker, saying, the old man, he should get out of here now, make way for young, fresh blood. And even though Murray Walker didn't take it too much, he did actually want to step away after the 2000 season, but he stayed on for 2001, missed a few races, and his final commentary was at the 2001 US Grand Prix, the last victory of Mika Hakkinen in F1, and that was his retirement from full-time Grand Prix commentary after 23 years and after over 50 years of commentating full-time as well. But that didn't mean the end of Murray Walker though. He still did quite a lot of commentary, like all over the world. Did like Australian touring cars, went to the centenary for the Tea-tailed of Man, did like videos, did pieces on websites for the likes of the BBC when they got the rights back after 2009, and even in his 90s for Channel 4 when they got the rights as well, like 5 years ago. Like, Murray Walker was working right up to like 1 or 2 years ago. He just had the perfect voice for commentary, had the perfect enthusiasm, and was very articulate, like a great English, like just words like to describe the action. And yeah, he just had the perfect enthusiasm for the moment, had the perfect tone for the moment. Even though some of the words came out the wrong way, with his Murrayisms, like, as he says, you're covering a sport that can go up like 200 miles per hour, like, things change in the blink of an eye. Sometimes the words come out in the wrong order. Most of the time the things he said was actually right, but, it's still, it's on the odd occasion it came out wrong. But we still loved him anyway. And also in the for a decade he also covered British touring cars, and this is actually what I remembered him most for the BBC, because I remember him covering touring cars mainly from like 96 to 98 until he stopped. But yeah, he covered touring cars in the late 60s, early 70s, and then from the late 80s to the mid 90s. And yeah, he was a great duo alongside Charlie Cox, I remember, in the end, for British touring cars, covering that. And as I said, apart from this, he covered many motorsports. So he's even covered like the likes of Ryan as well. And even though his first passion was always motorbikes, of course he'll always be most known was F1 commentary. And this channel wouldn't exist without him. Like, even though my father was incredibly passionate about motorsports, I didn't know him for very long, unfortunately. My Walker was that guy to give me the passion for motorsports. Like every Sunday with like Grandstand or with like ITV for the F1, turn it on. My Walker, Martin Brundle, they're a fantastic duo. We just all try to be, like him. Like, for me, since, I was very young, like with my Lego F1 sets, like trying to recreate the races and moments I've seen like the week before or like even that day. Like, I love doing that around the living room, making my own circuits and smashing up the cars on occasion as well. Like, especially after Spa 98. But yeah, we all try to, have that same passion and energy and knowledge and express that in a similar way that he did. Like I did with Power Oversteer, like I did before. Like I do the same with like meticulous notes. Like, don't have a script, I just make notes for all the drivers, the highlights. I try and transmit that knowledge in a similar way, and in say like the races I commentate as well. Even though it's video games, like I try and do it in that live style. I try and say like why this moment's important, why this rider's important. Try and look through the field as well. Look at everyone in that field. That why they're important, why they're down there. What. Try and do it in that way, and try and do that with that same passion and enthusiasm, and not quite pants on fire style. Like I don't quite have that voice, but just be like Maya Walker. I've been doing that my whole life, basically, yeah, and that's what I try and do with this channel with the races, and I always will try and do for the rest of my life, like with motorsport. I try and doing that in that way. Even though he lived a long life, lived till 97. I'll probably live, forever. Like, probably make at least 100. But what can I say? He's the greatest sports commentator that will ever be, in my eyes. Like, no one will come close. Even though there's great commentators around at the moment, like Lee Duffy in America, like John Hindhaugh, so for them on. No motorsports commentator will ever come close to me for my Walker. And as I said, for everything that he did for motorsports, being a fantastic ambassador as well in retirement. Like I said, he did commentary. His last commentary was in 2007 for the BBC, for Radio 5, alongside Maurice Hamilton for the 2007 European Grand Prix. What a race to end on as well. And yeah, as I say, he was Honda F1 ambassador when Jenson Button was there. He went all around the world, did sections for like Sky, for like Race of Champions, did, as I said, even for BBC and Channel 4, he's doing pieces up to a couple of years ago. So thank you, Murray Walker, for all that you did for me and millions around the world. And now I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.